There are 45 very simple micro strategies that you can start implementing today to start growing business. Find out more in this episode. So if there's one person that knows how to redefine growth, it is Sander Klos, and he's our guest today on the pod. He used to be the CEO of Eens, where we all used to go when we're booking a restaurant. He sold multiple companies. He's the founder of Business Accelerator, one of the best boot camps in the Netherlands, if you ask me. Welcome, Sander, to the pod. Maybe you have something to add to the introduction?
I think most important is that software plays a big role in all those enterprises. So software development and digital is definitely part of that introduction, I think.
Yeah, and one thing I know is that you're not only a serial entrepreneur when it comes to business, but also parallel, multiple entrepreneur, multiple companies that you started and even sold maybe. And I heard all the stories about your bootcamp, which we're going to dive in today. Which I forgot to say is you're also the author of Turbowinst, which are a lot of people very enthusiastic about. So a couple of topics today: your book, your bootcamp. And your experience as an entrepreneur. I'm really looking forward to it. So let's start off with the book, Turbowinst. Can you explain what is the main message you want to send with the book?
Yeah, the main message is that any business can grow exponentially if you know exactly what touch points you need to address in your business. And with 45 relatively small interventions, any business can tenfold their revenue and profits. And consequently, also the company valuation, because I think if you look at the 10 times revenue or 10 times profit, it will lead to at least 10 times the value. Usually, it's a lot more because of the multiplication effect of the valuation methods that you use.
What type of clients do you typically see that buy the book or that are in your bootcamp?
Yeah, funny enough, it seems to be pretty eclectic. So you see companies from different fields, so ranging from business to consumer, business to business. Sometimes even companies that address government market. But I think you see ambitious entrepreneurs with, let's say, a nose for new technology, who want to empower themselves with the best tooling and methodology. And are constantly interested in evolving themselves and their business to the next level. And if you pursue that, it's logical that they turn up in the bootcamps or buy the book because they're keen to learn.
Yeah, so the book is all about maximizing profit. So you're talking about these 45 micro strategies, interventions. Can you walk us through the book? And what are the first steps?
The book contains 3 parts. The first part is all about what's your personal motivation. So what's your bigger why? What kind of impact do you want to make? Or even some, let's say, desires that you have for yourself. Goals and objectives. And how does this propel your motivation actually to grow your company? I think it all starts with why, as Simon Sinek has some wise words to say about that. But I think it's totally true. So we guide the reader through the steps of defining their own purpose, basically. Secondly, there's an explanation of how it could possibly work for you. That means that if I explain to an entrepreneur what the mechanism is behind the microstrategies, they say, well, this is, let's say, deceivingly simple. It seems very simple and it seems very doable. And then my answer always is, well, this is exactly what I want you to conclude out of this. Because then it stacks up, right? You have the first element is, why should I do this? The second element is, wow, this is doable and I can achieve my goals doing this. And then the third part of the book is explaining, what do you need to do in order to get there, right? So the reader gets an understanding, how is this accelerated growth possible? Why should I do this? And thirdly, how does it work?
Interesting. And starting with the first part of the book, so the why of the entrepreneur. So why do I exist? So what I want to contribute. Can you name some examples of because the book is about making profit, but I can also imagine that the why is often different. Can you name some examples that you find inspiring?
Yeah, what we have in the whole program that we run is the question, what is your thought leadership? And I think every entrepreneur has some kind of thought leadership, and that it boils down to the question, what is the change that you want to see in the world, right? So the world is in a certain state. This is what you are not agreeing with. So that can mean that the planet is being more polluted, or people are not empowered, or a specific other more technical change that you want to see happening. Entrepreneurs are in the key position to make this change and to make this world a better place. So if you have this thought leadership and you can define for yourself, what change do I want to see in the world? Then the second step is, okay, how is my company positioned actually to generate that change? And the thoughts around that whole process are in the core the thought leadership. Yeah, and this is what propels their long-term vision and what they want to steer the company towards being a force for good in the world or the planet or in some way.
Yeah, I love how you're saying that. And we at Sprinter Sneakers are totally aligned with that. And using business as a force for good is also good for business, I believe, right? So if you do good as a business, it also turns back into the results that you will get.
And not every entrepreneur, let's say, is totally aware of this. This is an interesting element. So people in the program, the entrepreneurs, they are sometimes totally aware of it or sometimes half aware of it. And I think what's important that if everybody understands their own purpose and they connect it to the purpose of the company and also to the purpose of the brand that they're communicating, you get this alignment, this purpose alignment. And you become this purpose-driven organization where it becomes clear for the outside world what is actually where do you stand for, what do you want to achieve, and what is your purpose for your existence. But secondly, and I think which is evenly important, is that your employees and your team members, and also the candidates in terms of recruitment, also want to join your company as a force for good, right? And so you attract more people who are aligned with your goals, and you sort of work together instead of the more classical way of thinking, like, I have people on the payroll, I pay them money, and they give their time to me, which is more an old school way of dealing with this aspect.
Yeah, it's very important for the next generation to find purposeful work. And I love what you're saying. So one of the things we've been doing at Sprinter Sneakers is also looking at the why of the entrepreneur, the core of the business and the world problems that we see, and see where we can find a match and how that entrepreneur finds something that he or she really wants to contribute, use the business to solve one of these problems, which are often, we have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals where we think that might be a solution for the problems that we often see.
Exactly.
Well, we've been working with each other for quite a while. And when our clients, we call them partners, come to us often, there's something around that growth hacking. Well, it's a magical sauce. And I often tell them, we can only influence your success with about 20, maybe when there's an online transaction, 30%. So that's the kind of like the influence we can have. But I know your program, the 45 micro interventions and strategies that you have are more than that. So can you explain a little bit about the categories of these interventions and where it differentiates from, for example, the growth part only?
Well, the micro strategies are grouped in what we call macro strategies. So we have 6 different themes, and those themes are brand and positioning, front-end marketing, back-end marketing, sales optimization, people strategy, change management. And so those 6 themes, they are a sort of an overarching over your entire business, and they address every aspect of your growth. Now, if you go to a bookstore and you look into the business section, you will see at least, let's say, 200 books with each about 20 advices they give you. And if you want to know exactly, out of those 1,000 change that you can possibly make, what are the right ones? Well, this is roughly the problem that every entrepreneur faces. What kind of change do I need to make in order to make my company 10 times bigger? So it's more a question of making the right choice out of those interventions than to execute them right. Right? So I think an entrepreneur is usually in this maze where they start thinking, okay, what do I need to address? What part of my marketing do I need to address? What part of my sales? How to do this? And we've made this selection for them. And this is based on my 20 years of entrepreneurial, success, that I started selecting those success elements. And initially, they were not called microstrategies. They were just called my own personal best practice that I, used and overused again in every case. And if they turn out to be successful, I thought, well, let's use it again. If they were not that successful, I just eliminated them. And over the course of 20 years, I optimized those microstrategies. And at some point, I started wondering, how is it possible that you can only use those, specifically those 45? And why does it lead to this exponential growth? And I started calculating, how is this possible? And what's the relationship between those interventions and my revenue and profit? And it turned out, and this is not a piece of, let's say, a theory, but it turned out there was an underlying exponential growth formula, like a calculation, right? And so I was able to calculate the exponential growth of my previous businesses based on this financial mathematical formula. Now, this is very interesting because in the bootcamp, I'll show the audience. I'll show them the calculation, and I also show them how these themes actually interact with this calculation, right? And this gives a very simple overview. This is what your revenue is based on, and also your profit. These themes you need to address, and the only thing you need to do is for these 6 themes, take in total 45 interventions, put them in your company, and they will start working automatically on this exponential growth formula. And your revenue will grow and grow and grow in a systematic way, right? And so this is really important.
And is the tracker you've been talking about, is that the way how to keep track on these interventions?
Yeah. So to take it a little, I will get into that later. But what I did for when I wrote the book, and this was the first time because I needed to write it down in the book. I wanted to explain it in a better way. And while I had this need to further understand myself, this was the moment that I did some research and analysis and calculation. And then it turned out, let's say, that there was a mathematical model underneath this method. So then when I had the calculation, the next step was to take it into an app, right? If you have the calculation and the formula, you can take a profit and loss statement of any business, put it into the tracker. You only have to verify how far are you with those 45 interventions. Did you already do this? Or are you halfway? Or at 80%? And these questions you need to answer. And then you put them into this calculator. And then it calculates your current value of the business and your future value of the business. It calculates what kind of potential still lies in your business and which knobs you need to turn in order to activate that potential. And this is what the tracker does.
Oh, yeah. And so there are multiple interventions that they can do and multiple knobs you can turn. And so what is the most common mistake that you see companies make when it comes to growth?
Yeah, this is very obvious because if we tell the participants that they need to implement those 45 small changes, they will immediately say, listen, I always work sequential. This is what the entrepreneur usually does. They say, I'm first doing this, then I'm taking the next change, and then the next and the next. And the most important thing is that you address all these changes at the same time. So you need to implement these changes, let's say in a calendar year, but you need to do them at the same time. And you need to put them to work at the same time. But our mind usually works sequential. So we think we do one project and then we do the next project. I first need to fix my marketing and then I'll look at my sales and and so on and so on. And this is derived from software development. What you need to do is to put it to work in parallel. So you need to optimize your marketing and your sales and your change management, and you need to have a vision. And you need to do that all at once. Now, the common mistake is that the entrepreneur is not addressing that exponential growth formula across its total reach. They only address a small part of it. And what you get is linear growth. So the vast majority of the companies in the Netherlands, if they grow at all, they grow linear. And entrepreneurs don't understand why that is. And it is because you do not address all the exponential growth elements. And that's the cause of it. And this is what we are changing in the bootcamp.
Do you like this episode? Please hit that button and like and subscribe. Yeah, I like what you're saying. And I have to think about how we look at the full funnel. And I often say that if you're making a 20% profit, that you can do two things. If for every $5 euros that you make, you can also save one, right? It's the same thing in growing. And if you look at a full funnel, then often companies are gonna increase top of funnel, but you can also increase conversion, increase order value, the value per customer, or like even the referral rate. And I know you've been looking at you look at that in a similar way in your program. But besides only that, there's also the people which you include, which I really like. But it sounds also quite challenging how to organize that. So can you? The first step is obviously going to your bootcamp, but can you explain a little bit how to organize that as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, what I just explained about the choice between 1,000 interventions that you could possibly make. The first step is that we say it's not 1,000 changes, it's only 45, right? It's the first elimination of complexity.
Can you name some examples of the changes that a few of the 45?
Well, if you name one, a MicroStrategy, it's called the irresistible offer. Right? So an irresistible offer is part of the front-end marketing. So in the buyer journey, you want to give your client at the point of high interest. So if they're sort of along the way, they know what you're doing and they are increasingly interested, at that point you give him an irresistible offer. Now the Dutch typically are not in that area of culture, right? We are giving very resistible offers usually. Because we are a little bit careful, right? We're not very extreme as a culture. We want to take things, let's say, relatively slow, and not to be, let's say, going into the extremes. But if you want to convince a client that your product is the absolute best, give him an irresistible offer. Tell them, here is the product. You start using it, maybe for free even, or in a trial period, or I'm giving it to you for free. Start using it and you'll experience the benefits. Well, so this is a game changer, let's say, in the buyer journey of the client. And what I see happening a lot, let's say, is that companies say, well, this is the point that the customer is interested, or the potential customer, I'll give him my offer. And we say, no, it needs to be irresistible. Now, the next point is that the client, that the entrepreneur says, listen, Sander, this is going to cost me money. Right? Because I have to give the product for free, or a longer period, or give additional trainings, or whatever. And that's true. It will cost you money. And you are buying the market, so to speak. But then with which money? And then I point at the back-end marketing. This is where you address the current client with marketing and additional products to resolve his remaining problems. So this is an area where usually the majority of the European enterprise, 65%, does not have any back-end offering. Zero. So that means that they just sell the product and they leave. They say, well, I've sold it to you. Here are your solar panels. They're on your roof. Thank you very much. And we're going to find the next client who wants to buy my solar panels. The most logical thing to do is asking, what are you going to do with the surplus on energy that you're generating with the solar panels? And they will say, well, we'll send it back into the network and get a few euros from that. And then you say, listen, why don't we store it in a battery which sits inside your home? They already trust you, right? They already bought the solar panels from you. why not extend the customer journey and add the battery to it? And this is a very logical next step. Well, and this is where you earn your money. This money you'll reinvest in attracting more customers for your solar panels. And this is the turbo mechanism, right? You earn it in the back end and you invest it in the front end. And you are able, to attract more customers. And when they're at the point of buying, you give them the irresistible offer. And this is how it sort of propels. And this is like a shortcut in an answer. The whole front-end marketing has a lot more of those micro-strategies. And the back-end also has a lot of those micro-strategies in order to make this work. Now, back to your question about how to reduce complexity. The micro-strategies, they are sort of together, they form this macro-strategy. So the whole, let's say, cooperation between those micro-strategies already thought through. You don't need to think about that. So that's the second element. Together, they form this methodology or system in your company that triggers this growth. This is totally pre-thought through. So you only need to put the interventions into place. Now, the third element that reduces complexity is that people say, well, 45 of those changes, it's still a lot, right? This is the moment that I ask, what is micro? What is micro? What is a microgram, right? It is 1,000 parts. It's 1 of 1,000. So if you take a full-blown strategy and you take 1,000 of it, it's very, very small. That means that the micro strategy, I can explain it to an entrepreneur in 20 minutes. They think about it for 20 minutes and they'll implement it in 20 minutes. So in 60 minutes, the entire micro strategy is implemented in the company of the participant. That means that if you take roughly 45 micro strategies, is 45 hours. That's the total time net spent in order, to change your business. And this is relatively, I think, a limited effort, in order to, propel your business to 10 times your current size.
Yeah, and back to the irresistible offer you were talking about. What I understand from it is that you want to increase the value you can deliver to your clients by doing additional offerings, but also at the front end deliver more value before doing a transaction. And if I'm correct, I think your bootcamp could be your irresistible offer. No?
This is like a sneak preview or into the program, but this is totally true. We use ourselves. We eat our own medicine, right? Yeah. So we apply the same methodology that we want to convey to our participants. But you're totally right.
Yeah, there's so much value in it. Like you're giving away so much value. It's kind of crazy, and but people are so enthusiastic that the response is so crazy that they experience what it is. And then they want to work with you, right? They have no other option than just to work with you because they're the responses are crazy. Like I've never seen that before.
Yeah. This is what's happening, and it's this has been the case over the last years, and consequently we get the net promoter score. So the question, would you recommend this to other entrepreneurs? We consequently get a number back between a 9.0 and a 9.5. So, and it's sort of slowly increasing over the last quarters, right? So the last time we got this 9.5, which is like, we are at the point that, that we can be, satisfied with the value that we bring. What's still a challenge is to explain it before people actually enter into the bootcamp. Because if they're there, they say, how is it possible that, I didn't expect this, right? And this is what we try to explain before they get there, in order to make clear what we have in store for them.
Yeah, because you have so much value to offer in the bootcamp. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the we go 2 days, we go full throttle with them. We give them everything we can possibly give them in this time frame of 2 days. And what we get back usually is that it totally changed the way of thinking about their own business. It inspired them, let's say, for the year to come, of years to come, and they have this new vision about how do they need to address the company growth. and and of course a portion of them is working with us also after that as a partner, to implement also all these microstrategies.
Yeah, interesting. And we've been talking about the most common problem. You have these 45 microstrategies. You have a book, the bootcamp, the program. But for the listeners, what is something you would recommend to already start doing? So what you see all the time, and which is maybe something they can do tomorrow to already change their business a little bit in the direction that you would go to.
Yeah, I think then we talked about the different themes, and every theme, like the front-end marketing, back-end marketing, people strategy, it has a certain goal. And I think every listener can immediately start thinking about their own goals on these themes, right? So if you take branding, for instance, do you communicate your uniqueness to the market? And does the market understand in what way you are different than anybody else and better, right? So you need to convey this message at the same time. You need to explain, why am I better and different than the rest of my competitors, right? And usually companies do not explain it in a sensible way or in a good way. Markets usually think, well, they're one of many, and it's not clear to me in what way they're different. You start thinking about your branding, in what way you're different and better than anybody else. And don't be so polite, because the Dutch are really very modest usually. This is something that's an American entrepreneur. You don't need to explain how they need to do that, because they do that by nature. But we are usually way too modest. Well, if you look at front-end marketing, start giving the product before they buy it, right? This is what I explained about the irresistible offer, but also help them to understand the problems that they have, and help them in evaluating the problems and explain the dimensions of the problem, and also highlighting the solutions that there are in the marketplace, and what's the value of that. So let them see the real value of what you have to offer, and start offering them help and assistance and potentially your product along the way, so that any potential client becomes a buyer. That would be the purpose, of the front-end marketing, to increase the trust that you have in them from your potential clients to that level that are inclined to make the first buy. Then we enter into the back-end marketing. In that area, what we just discussed is that 65 of the European companies do not have a back-end. So, and your clients must have additional unsolved problems after your first product that you've sold, or the first service.
What is your definition of back-end, just for the listener to understand?
Back-end is that area of business that you repeatedly sell new products and services to the same client. So it's with the solar panels, that's your initial sale. Then afterwards you sell them a battery, right? And afterwards you sell them like an electrical system that balances the power flow in your house. So this is back-end. You help them resolving remaining problems out of your own business. And with this, you will lengthen the customer journey. You also increase the total customer lifetime value. And with this also increase your profitability, because you do not need to spend any money to get the client, because he's already is a client, right? So this is back-end. In sales, we are living in a digital age, so sometimes companies do not have any sales anymore, which I, by the way, highly recommend. If you can come to the point to do it all with marketing, right, then you should do that. At one point, I bought a Tesla Model S, right, and I was in Tilburg, and I was looking at the car, and I said, "All right, I want to buy it," and it had 10,000 kilometers. It was a demo. And the guy said, go to the website and you just find
Buy
the
it.
car and just buy it. So this is typical for, I think, 2024. But to companies who still have this sales process in place, my advice is stop paying, let's say, the messies in your team ridiculous amounts of money while you're making yourself vulnerable, for their performance, or they're going off to another company, and start systemizing your process, right? And make it into a system that everybody can follow, and systemize sales, because it seems like an erratic process, but it's not.
Yeah.
So systemize it before you become too much dependent on sales guys.
Yeah, I think the sales is totally changing as well. And one of the guests we've lined up is Tony from the social selling company, and was explaining. He wrote a book, AI in Sales, and I wrote a chapter in it also explaining what my vision is on marketing and sales together. I think sales become more marketeers, and marketeers become more salespeople. And also take into account that I was talking with Chris Walker, saying like 86% of the time of buyers, they don't talk to salespeople. So they're researching online. They're looking for information, what the best product is, a comparison website, and on social, and reviews of other clients. So that's where you want to spend your efforts on the 86% rather than the 5% that they're actually talking to a sales rep. So I'm totally aligned with what you're saying. And in order to do that in the right way, I think what you're saying as well is you need a thought leadership position. You need to guide them. And I know you're a friend of Dan Smith, who was here as well. And you have to be the guide to guide them towards the solution that they're looking for and providing that value. So it's so nice that you have that advice on every step of it. And what is the go-to advice you would have in terms of the people strategy?
Yeah, people strategy. I think it's really important that entrepreneurs start to see their team as this sort of sleeping giant, right? It's sort of asleep. Usually they're treated as as a group that you make agreements with about how much work do you do, when you start working, stop working, what salary do you get, right? What's the payment that you need to get. And I quote here Stephen Covey from the 8th Habit. And Covey said, listen, if you treat people like a machine, right? Because a machine has the same attributes. It has a starting point, an end point. It costs money. It works or doesn't work. And if you treat people like that, they will start behaving like a machine. This, I think, every entrepreneur has the possibility to start viewing their team as a very important stakeholder, as important as the clients. Well, this is already I think a big change in the view of most of the entrepreneurs. Start to see the team members as an equally important stakeholder in your company. Start to understand, what do I ask from them and what do I give them? What is that interchange? And not only in terms of money, but also in terms of perspective, socially, but also in terms of long-time reward, right? So you as an entrepreneur, you build this value in your company. Why don't you make your team part of that? So when I sold off my first company, I said to the notary, we're going to take 10% of the total payment that we receive and we'll give it to the team. The notary said, where are the documents? And I said, well, there are no documents. So the notary said, are you saying to me that they don't know this? I said, yes, they don't know this, but we're going to do this. And he said, listen, Sander, this is the most crazy thing that I ever heard of. So you're going to give away 1.2 million to people who are not entitled to it and they don't know it. Is it right? I said, yes. And this is the way that we did it. And what I agreed with myself is that in future, I would predict it, right? It would be an agreement. I would say, listen, guys, this is where we're headed. If the company valuation reaches this point, or in any case, if we're going to sell it, you're part of that deal because they're part of the company anyway. So this is all about, let's say, if you want to empower people to perform, and this is like also managerial things that you need to change, and make people part of the earning model, both short-term salary, mid-term, bonus commission and long-term company value increase, options, shares, or how do you want to arrange it. I think every entrepreneur has a possibility to awaken this sleeping giant. And it is a force which is, let's say, it's 20 times bigger than your own time and ability. So I see companies who start to do this, and the entrepreneur, what they tell me is that they feel this wind under their wings. They're being lifted in a way that they couldn't think was possible.
Yeah, and they're your ambassadors, right? So, and Sprint Sneaks, we have 30% available for the team. They can easily participate. You've got all these tools and platforms available nowadays, like the Share Council, for example, that offer that. So it's quite easy to make them part of that adventure. And also think when you look at a brand strategy, is often the starting point is like how do you position yourself as a company to the outside world. But I really believe that you should take into account the marketing towards the team internally, and also the people you want to attract, and also the clients that you want to work with. So it's more than only, hey, this is how we're going to position ourselves towards the potential clients, because it started also with the team, and you have to enable them to talk about your company in a very easy way, because every birthday that they are, and I remember, I think it was Uber itself where you could just order food. I think it was Zoom actually. The secondary benefits there were really, really strong. So you could order food, I think for €100 a month. So when you have some friends over and you can say, I know where I got €100 budget left, from the company. And I think I love these kind of things where it's so easy to talk about it and be an ambassador and promote the company, because every touch point you have as a company you should always provide value and have a positive interaction, I believe. Well, back to the program, the 45 interventions. You were saying it's how many hours? 45 hours in total net?
Yeah, it's a net duration that you need to spend to get this MVP going, right? You get this sort of minimal viable product of your growth system into your company. Now, this sounds maybe overly optimistic, because the entrepreneurs that we are working with, they seem to take a little bit more time for that. And maybe that's logical because it's new to them. So what usually happens that they'll use roughly a calendar year, 12 months in total, as a total duration to do it, let's say from wall to wall, from ceiling to the floor, to create this growth system into the company. But then they have this foundation for several years of continuous exponential growth. And if you take this calendar year, I think, let's say it's doable what you need to address. You can absolutely do that at the same time with your business as usual. And what also is happening is that if they get this grip on this growth system, it becomes an object that I like to work with, right? And so the best people in the company are also, let's say, addressing how are we going to do this. And what I see is that it not only inspires, but people get really motivated because they say, this is my business. I thought I was selling solar panels, right, to households, and I thought my business was actually selling it and delivering it and buying it, let's say, from the manufacturer. But my business actually front-end marketing, back-end marketing, branding, and people strategy. That is my business. So you see them sort of tipping over to this new field of play. And after this year, they continue doing so. And they just hand over the business as usual, to, let's say, to their team. And they're constantly addressing the way that this strategic business development is actually working for them. And after these 12 months, you see them just continuously addressing the same principles and growing and growing and growing. And we have a whole range of examples of companies going to this tenfold, let's say, within a couple of years.
Wow. And it's often the entrepreneur that is joining your bootcamp, or you're talking to the entrepreneurs. Who else is involved in this process?
Yeah, this is an important topic because you see a couple of variants, but what we suggest is that please come as an entrepreneur and bring your key team members. And for every company, that can be different, right? It can be a couple of your partners, let's say your fellow shareholders. It could be members of your management team, but it also can be people in the wider leadership team, or maybe talents that you want to bring in order for them to participate immediately in the changes that you want to see happening into your company. Sometimes we see, 6 people coming. They take an entire, we work with these round tables. They sit together, and they're 2 days working on their company, and they leave the bootcamp with an action plan, how to address it, and also clarity about who's doing what. I wanted to say just now what can go wrong in this way, but because what I see happening is that you get this entrepreneur coming and he comes alone, right? He thought, well, I'm not sure about the bootcamp. It sounds really good, but I don't. It's maybe not as good as they explain it to be. And they sit there, and then after 4 hours they come with me at the first lunch stop, and they say, "Oh man, I made a big mistake." Because I'm here alone. And then I know. And I said, yeah, you're sorry about the fact that you didn't bring your team, right? And he said, yeah, because now Monday, I'm coming to my business and I need to explain all this, let's say, from myself, into my team. And they will say, what is this all about? Exponential growth formula and micro strategies, in the... Now, so there's a solution to this. It's called the book Turbowinst. And sometimes they take a whole stack of those books, take them into the company and hand out the book and say, listen, read this, and this is what we're going to do. What I also sometimes see is that only the marketing manager comes, or the growth director, and this is even worse, because they sit there and they think, okay, this is what we need to do, but now I need to explain it, to the decision maker. And this is this is difficult, because they'll say, what is this, bootcamp, turbo profit, so they need to explain it from scratch. Luckily, the room is usually filled with, 80% entrepreneurs. Luckily, the majority of them is wise, that they bring let's say a partner, or let's say the right hand, or the growth marketeer, or whatever. So this is my advice about the bootcamp.
Cool. And your book is all about maximizing profit. You also have a vision on the people and planet part, right? Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is what I mentioned about the sleeping giant in your in your team. I think if you want to have sustainable growth, and if you want to have this sustainable relationship with your environment, meaning the people and the planet, your clients, your partners, etc., you need to think about who are my stakeholders and why are they important to me and what can I contribute, right? So a part of the program is the emphasis on stakeholder analysis and management. And that means that you think about the sustainable value that you bring to these stakeholders, including your team. And if you are aligned to have this mutually profitable relationship with each stakeholder, long term, including the planet and the economy, I think then you reach a situation that you have this constant positive impact, and at the same time making this profit. And so this is like a foundation under the program, and I think it's really important that we start to create this awareness with the participants.
Yeah, I love that you do it, and I believe also we should make the shift when it comes to using business as a force for good. We should shift from the why towards the why not, right? So I think we all have the opportunity to contribute as an individual, but especially as a business. And there are many researches that also show that it's good for attracting new talent. It's good for feeling good because you get up in the morning and you know what you're doing and what you want to contribute. But also in terms of the business results, there's some research that businesses that do good perform good. which I think is enough reason, also taking into account the government and stricter regulations that are coming, enough reasons to start doing it. So why not?
Yeah, that's true. Although, I mean, if you introduce rational business reasons, right, why you should do this, be this force for good, maybe it's, in my view, it's not ambitious enough, right? So I'm that ambitious that I want to bring people to the actual point that they know and feel why it is force for good. You know, it shouldn't be a rational consideration. You shouldn't be this force for good because you want to increase your profitability with 50%, because it shows in the research reports. I think that everybody, let's say, people want to make this contribution anyhow. An entrepreneur, a team member, a manager, everybody. The only thing we need to do is to become aware of where do you want to make this contribution. And I think we should. They can align everything that they do with this force for good, and that, let's say, as a secondary effect, it increases profitability, revenue, etc. Well, that's nice from an economical standpoint, but I would say let's bring people to the point that they really understand why they're doing things, and that it comes from the heart. Also, the reason why to awaken the sleeping giant, right? Not to be more effective, right? But if you want, because you want to give it to those people in your team. This is the reason why I gave this 10%, the 1.2 million. Why did I do it? Why just wanted to give it to them. There was no rationale behind it, right? Because I couldn't, for the same reason, or for the same principle, or with the same starting point, I could have decided, to put the 1.2 million in my own pocket. But you come to the point, what do I want to give to the market, to the people, to the clients, and to my team members?
Yeah, I love what you're saying, that it should come from the entrepreneur itself. And I think 90% of the entrepreneurs is actually willing to make a positive impact, but often they find themselves in a situation where they start a business and the main goal was always profitability. And they need to be inspired a little bit to change their business and focus more on what they can contribute. And that's why I often ask them the question about their 100-year plan, and they look at me saying, I won't be alive anymore. Well, that's exactly the point. So you could think of something that you can leave behind and contribute. And I think especially when you get kids, that feeling starts to become even stronger. So let's keep on doing that. Let's keep on inspiring entrepreneurs to do good and contribute something.
Yeah, in the bootcamp we address this specific topic, about so when actually do you want to achieve this? And there's this in the workbook. There's this table, and you can just cross which year you want to achieve which goal. And there's this right column, and it says, above the columns there are specific years, so 2 years from now, 4 years from now, etc. And then the last column is, at some point, right? So it's undefined. So in Dutch, then it says ooit, right? So I'm saying to the public, well, there's it has a misprint in the book. Right, and then the audience start laughing because they understand, there's this missing N, right? Because it actually said nooit. Because if you say at some point in time, it will never happen. If you don't address it, this is what I want to achieve at that moment. Also for yourself in your own objectives, it will just not happen, right? And I think Alice in Wonderland, she asked the Cheshire Cat, right? Do I need to go right or left? And then the cat says, well, it depends on where you want to go and where you want to end up. And then Alice said, well, it doesn't matter where I end up. And then the cat said, well, then it doesn't matter if you go right or left. And this is where the majority of entrepreneurs, they say, I have this vague idea of what I want to achieve, where I want to end up with, and also the thought leadership. It's all rather vague, right? And my strong belief is, if you make that specific, you have the possibility to actually start measuring how far you are towards that point, and to take specific action to also get there, right? and the people are pinpointing, this is what I want to do at that point in time, let's say, and this is my measurement of success, they have this high chance of actually achieving it, because they will align all the strategies together to actually get there. But, if you don't have that vision, you're just working sort of bottom up, from where you are, make a little step into next year, and you just stack the years one after the other, and you end up somewhere, but you actually don't know where that is.
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of doing it the other way around, saying this is what I want to do. Create this rough image about so where you want to be in, let's say, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and then work backwards to where you are today. And then it's working from top down, and then what you will see is that you could just stack all the strategies together, and they will sort of align and cooperate to get to that goal. And I think this is really important. And another thing that I see in the boot camps, that a majority of the entrepreneurs is working really hard in their business to all make it happen. But I think we talked about stakeholders. One of the stakeholders is you, right? Where are you in this whole picture? And then entrepreneurs look at me and they say, where am I? What are you talking about? I am my business. And as I'm saying, no, you're not your business. You are you, right? You are a person, and you are allowed to have your own goals and your own targets that you want to achieve, and the purpose for yourself and your own life. Maybe with your family, your children, your legacy. Maybe it's about spending less time in this business, right? Instead of more. It's got to do with international travel. So what do you want exactly? Because the entrepreneur is the single and most importantly positioned individual to actually achieve what they want to do in their own life. More so than the CEO of this corporate. More so than an individual team member. Or, let's say, an independent worker, right? ZZP'er or let's say, or een zelfstandige. They have this company, but you need to direct it in a way that is also serving your goals. This is something that usually, if I'm making that split, this is like a wake-up call. And a lot of entrepreneurs say, well, this is never how I've seen it, because I've sort of, became one with this company. But my invitation is to see it as a separate entity. Take yourself out of that business and think about, what do you want? And the business can be the instrument to also achieve your goals.
Yeah, it's interesting. As we invited Mathieu Graham, he's a friend from Belgium. He's an Olympic athlete, a trainer. And one of the things I learned from him as well is he did a keynote with our company, and he asked everyone to write down the 5 most important names of the 5 names of the most important people in their lives, and nobody wrote down their own name. And he said, well, if you're going in an airplane and it's crashing, the first thing is you put on your own oxygen mask, right? To be capable of taking care of others, you should be taking care of yourself. And I think that's a big mistake entrepreneurs sometimes make, is they overwork or don't think about their family, and success comes at a price. And it's either the price of your own health or the family, or and I think it's really good advice that you give there, that you should always be taking care of yourself and set your own personal goals. And I don't believe in private and business as separate things. You have your life goals, and the business is part of it. So that is amazing. And one of the other things I really like about what you said is, I generally see 2 ways of growing your business. One, hey, this is what we have and what we can do with it. And the second one, I think, was we were talking about, is, hey, this is what we want to achieve and this is what we need for it. So rather than having like a strategy based on scarcity, it's a strategy based on opportunity. And you look ahead, so where you want to achieve and what is needed for it. And so you don't limit yourself towards the resources that you currently have. So.
Totally. And for that purpose, we one of the micro strategies, it's called MGSPI. the names the names are of the single letters are mission, goal, strategy, plan, implement. So this is a sequence of things that you need to think through, which are, let's say, directly interrelated. This sounds maybe a little bit abstract, but what I mean to say is that usually the entrepreneur, he looks at his business, or she, and then starts planning, right? They have this business and they create this business plan. How do I want to move forward? It is a bottom-up plan. It's what do I have and how do I expand it? The MGSPI, it works top-down. What is my mission, right? What is the change I want to see in the world? What's my positive impact? Then the second element is not the plan. It is the strategies. What kind of strategy do I need to implement in order to achieve that goal, that mission that I have? Then afterwards comes the plan. Now I need to calculate if all those strategies, if you tie them together, how does it look like? What kind of business plan do I get? And if at some point translating your mission into goals and goals into strategies, if there is this sort of, if something is lacking, if I think that I'm not achieving my goals with these strategies, which are relatively abstract, I'm going back rethinking what strategy do I need to add? Well, in this way, if you look at Steve Jobs, he was rethinking his own MGSPI, right? And he was not making a business plan. He was thinking, how can I make Apple the greatest company on the planet? So he said, listen, we have this Macintosh and it's not enough. And they said, Steve, what are you talking about? And Steve said, the Macintosh, it's not taking us to our mission, right? Because we need more. He said, what are you talking about? We need more. And he said, listen, we need something different. And Steve says, and I know what. We're going to create this little device, right? We're talking about the time of the cassettes. He said, this device, it contains 1,000 songs. You can quickly select each song individually, right? If you shake it, it doesn't ramble, right? It keeps on, giving that clear sound. It's digital. And they said, it's impossible. It's totally crazy. And Steve said, no, it's not impossible. We're going to make it. And we need to have it in order to achieve our mission. So the iPod was a strategy in this growth pattern of the MGSPI. Later, they said, we need something new, right? You have this traditional phone, but we're going to change it. So this way of thinking, let's say, it comes when you start with a mission, set your goals, and then think about different growth strategies. On this abstract, you are open to, let's say, new expansions, and then it all turns out into a plan that you can calculate. What do I need? How many people? How do they work together? Do I need a bigger office? How do I need additional money? Let's say, and how do I all make it work? And then if all things sit together and they're correct and aligned, then you start to implement. But then you know exactly how is this MGSPI related to my thought leadership? What change what do I want to see in the world? But it's also related to your own goals. And this is so non-Dutch, right? And maybe people say, but this is a little bit American, right? They say that all the time. If you look at Tony Robbins, Brandon Burchard, right? They will say, listen, it's about you and your goals. And maybe I've gotten, let's say, maybe a little bit American in my view.
Yeah, and we've been talking before the pod about your goal. So maybe you can share your goal. So you have the book, the bootcamp, the programs. Why are you doing what you do?
The most important reason is empowerment of the individual entrepreneur. Because I think that the entrepreneur is a powerful force in the economy and a force to do good. The impact that I have personally in my life, each and individual entrepreneur that I empower to be successful, it has a multiplier on the effect that it has. It has a multiplier in terms of his team, his clients, his business. And if this force for good is increasing with this individual entrepreneur, and I do that 100-fold, well, then you're talking about real life impact. All the elements are now lined up and they have proven to be successful. So the only thing that I want to do now is to increase the volume of it. So more entrepreneurs in the bootcamp, more entrepreneurs in the program, the tracker where you can measure your progress through your exponential growth. It's on the verge of going live in literally a couple of days. With this we have this global reach. Right? It's an international product, so we can go outside of the boundaries of the Netherlands. Although the Netherlands will still be very important to me because it's our home, and we are, let's say, within traveling distance for entrepreneurs that want to work with us. But with the tracker, we have this global ambition.
One of the things that what I find interesting is that your book is called Turbo Profit, but I think the main outcome of your book or the program or the tracker is not profit. Well, it is profit, but what is actually the main outcome that you want to achieve? Yeah,
we had a hard time actually figuring out what would be the best title of the book, right? So I was it was already written, so a total of 320 pages, and it was there. We had the manuscript. Yeah, but in the title it was relatively difficult. So was it about growth? Was it about micro-strategies? Is it about profit? But actually, what it all turns into is the independence of the entrepreneur. We provide this tooling and methodology in order for individual entrepreneurs to reach their goals while they're staying independent. And what's the opposite of that? Well, you see this portion of entrepreneurs, this group, say, yeah, but I need this growth money. And I need to attract this money because otherwise I'm not growing, because I need to invest this money into my company, and then I will go 5-10 times bigger. But this scenario is less easy than it looks like, because if you get this money from venture capital providing company, venture capital is a VC, they will want to know, where are you going to invest it in, and will it lead to scaling and profitability? Well, if you do not know, let's say, how this profitability will work for you, you will burn the money, right? They will start being increasingly interested of where the profit will lie. And then, you just open the paper, it's full of companies that say, listen, we've taken this million. We want to take the company to the next step. We haven't found out how. We have this 30% shareholder in our company. They are increasingly putting the pressure to us. Where's the profitability, right? And then, where's your independency? Well, it's gone. It is gone, right? You've just, let's say, handed over your independence for this long shot, and you thought you had this indication that this million would bring you, let's say, to a 10 times bigger company, but it didn't. Now, what's the opposite of this? And this is the positive view that we have. Take your current business and your product market combination. Put those 45 micro-strategies to work. Create those small interventions. So change your company so it will become increasingly profitable, and reuse that profit to propel your increasing effectiveness of the growth system. So take the money out of the back-end marketing and reinvest it into the front-end marketing and branding, right? And you get this cycle. And you get more customers who buy more at a higher price over a longer period of time. And they stay longer with you as a client. And you just increase your profitability. And you keep reinvesting it. So it's like a snowball that you roll over the snow. And it becomes increasingly bigger. And the only thing you need to do is to keep rolling it. And then if you want to take that money, take that 1 to 3 million as an investment, you can do that at the point that you know that the company is already profitable and exactly where the profit lies and what knobs you need to turn, right? So to start increasing that profit. And you're not burning the million, you're spending it to grow what is already working. So in this way, you either retain your full independence. So you go through this autonomous growth and you're not attracting any capital at all, right? This is a possible scenario. If you still want to do that, well, you can either go to a direct lending company. They will look at your profitability, and if you have a positive cash flow, they will give you about 6 times your current positive EBITDA. And you can just lend the money and just give it back, and you retain your 100% shares for yourself while achieving all your goals. So it all turns out, in my view, to keep the independency, to reach your goals, and to empower yourself, to get where you want to be.
Yeah, and also I think the freedom you offer the entrepreneurs, because the more efficient or the better the business is running, you also look at the happiness of the people working in that company, make it part of the adventure, and looking at the goals of that entrepreneur to contribute something. I think these are really the key ingredients to have like a quality of life. Doing something purposeful, having too much stress in running your business, make the business profitable, so you can maintain that business for a long period, offer people a nice place to work, and offer them a purposeful job, and also take into account the goals that you have just in general in your life, like spending time with your family, your kids, etc. So I think it's all in there in the program. I really advise people to go to your bootcamp, to buy your book. When is the next bootcamp?
It is the 1st and 2nd of March. So the registration is open. So if people want to
do we still have some
enroll,
spots?
There are still some spots. So you can find more information on scalebootcamp.eu. So that's the place where you can find more info and buy the tickets.
Thanks for listening to the Redefine Growth podcast. We've been talking about redefining strategies in terms of profit, people, and planet. I hope you liked it. Do you like to join the bootcamp? There's a link in the description, or just leave a comment and we'll be in touch.